Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today, live from the UK, is actor David Payne, who is bringing a show to the Paramount Theater on October 15th. It's a two-man show about a meeting between two very famous authors, C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. First off, David, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Where am I talking to you from?
You are talking to me from England. My wife and I have a house on the near the south coast, and it's just stopped raining.
Well, and at the time that we are recording this, we're also in the middle of the 10-day mourning period for the Queen. So, yes. and Johnathan Swenson, who we're going to have wave at the camera in a minute, former Cedar Rapids area resident, has picked a very interesting time to visit the UK.
He did indeed, and we've just watched the procession from the Queen's coffin from Buckingham Palace to where it's now going to be lying in state for those people that want to go by. We're being told that the queue is likely to be so long that it may take 30 hours for them to walk.
So are you going to spend 30 hours in line?
No. If I may call her Liz, if Liz was here and I told her I was thinking about it, she said, "Don't be stupid."
So you're going to be in the United States and touring a show called An Evening with C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. And before we talk specifically about this show, you've made something of a cottage industry of your acting career, particularly with C.S. Lewis, but these figures out of history. I know there's a Winston Churchill show that's coming up. What drew you to this in the beginning?
Well, C.S. Lewis to start off with, and not so much just C.S. Lewis, but the play Shadowlands, which is about the stage, and of course it's a movie production about Lewis's relationship with the American woman he eventually married. And I was in Nashville on another project, a music project actually, and I was there for 2 years. And near the end of that project, I saw a bulletin from a theater company that used to do their shows in downtown Nashville. And the bulletin had a little display ad. It said, "Auditions for Shadowlands, British accents are help." And I thought, well, I've got a British accent. I've had it for a long time. So I wonder whether it can be of any use. So I called the telephone number, talked to the lady, said, "I've got a British accent, never been on the stage before, but was there any point in me coming?" And she said, "Well, it's sort of community theater. So in a way, it's all comers are welcome." So I went down, hoped I might get a small part, and ended up winning the lead role of C.S. Lewis.
So you had not done much acting before that time?
I hadn't done any acting before that time.
What was your line of work before you got into this?
I was in marketing, and mainly marketing in the sense of working with projects that I like working with, and helping people market the products they have. For the Nashville was a religious music company that wanted to set up an office in Nashville. They were British, so I had come over. I'd done some marketing concepts for them, and they asked me if I would come over and set it up, which was what one might call a long-term marketing commission. So that was what I was doing at the time.
So you did what in essence was kind of a community theater production of the C.S. Lewis play. And obviously it went well. At what point did you branch out into, into these, other aspects and shows of his life?
Well, during the play and during the rehearsals for the Shadowlands, the director gave me a copy of A Grief Observed. It was a book Lewis wrote after his wife died, and it was like a diary of grief, and he did it just to help him get through the grieving process. He found that if he wrote things down, of how he was feeling, it helped him. So, and I memorized the book afterwards. It's like a small book, 96 pages, and I memorized it. And then a friend found out that I'd memorized it, and he said, "What are you going to do with it?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. It just needs an audience now, I suppose." And so he said, "Well," he had a big lounge in Nashville, one of the big houses. He said, "Well, I've got some friends. I'll get some friends along." So he got 40 people along, and I did my first one-man performance there, and it went well. And then we put it on in Nashville and to see how it would go, and that sold out, which was a big surprise. And then over a period of time, I changed it until it became an evening with C.S. Lewis, and we've been doing that now for over 20 years.
So you write these yourself?
Oh, yes, I do. Partly because it's not that I don't like other writers, it's just I know what I want.
You said before we got started, there is a Christmas with C.S. Lewis show that also is a kind of a part of this. But the show that you're bringing to Cedar Rapids is the Evening with C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yes.
And these are two writers. Everybody knows who they are. Most people today, I think, identify, when they think of their works, they think more of the various adaptations, the movies and all of that, more than the original works, let alone the original men. But they actually knew each other quite well. They were professors together, right?
They were very great friends. They were both professors, not actually together. Tolos was his nickname. Tolkien was a professor at Oxford University. Lewis became a professor at Cambridge University. So they both had ultimately professorships. When they were together in Oxford, Lewis was a tutor, Tolkien was a professor, and they formed a very strong friendship right from the word go. Found that they had a similar love for mythology, and that provided the initial foundation, which ended up with them talking to each other and reading to one another the manuscripts that they were writing. It's a great friendship, and I don't think the two men would have written what they wrote without each other.
That is that's quite the picture in my head of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien sitting at the pub together, reading the first drafts of the Chronicles of Narnia and the Hobbit to each other.
Yeah, well, Tolos read almost the entire manuscript of The Lord of the Rings to Lewis and his friends, and that took 12 years.
But at some point they became estranged.
I don't know whether the word estranged is the right word, but that maybe sound a bit too harsh. The way I term it is the friendship cooled over a period of time, and it was partly because there was a gentleman that Lewis. I think the reason was a gentleman that came into Lewis's life, who Lewis admired a lot, and I think slightly put Tolkien's nose out of joint. But it didn't help. In fact, it was one of the really problematical times when Lewis married the American woman Joy Gresham, because she was divorced, and Tolkien was a strict Catholic, a very sincere one, but a strict Catholic, and he believed that he should never have married her. Worse still, Lewis didn't even say he was marrying her, so he found out after the fact. He wasn't very happy about that either. And that was a level of cooling. But what my play is set near the last months of Lewis's life. He's just had a heart attack. He recovered from it. But what inspired me to write the play was I read a letter that Tolkien sent to his son about Lewis. And it's such a tender, passionate, warm letter. It was a reminder that Tolkien still held Lewis's friendship as one of the most important things of his life. And I thought, right, well, yes, I want to bring them together at the end of their lives. We know they did get together. And I wanted them to get together so that they would celebrate the friendship, which really was always there. It was never poor. It was never negative on Lewis's side. He never had a grudge against Tolkien. But Tolkien, and again, the word grudge is probably, again, too strong a word. It's just that Tolkien didn't agree with him marrying a divorced woman, and that didn't help. And he felt that Lewis had compromised his Christian faith. So, but they come together and they deal with some of the issues that were a problem. They talk about their friendship. They talk about what people say about what they're writing, what they say about what they're writing, and then they just end up being so grateful for their friendship. It's very tender at the end.
You mentioned the letter that Tolkien wrote to his son, and also, I'm sure that with all the research you've done into C.S. Lewis's life, you feel like you could tell his life story just right now off the top of your head to me. Any other source material that inspired you, or is it really just about two men coming together toward the end of their lives talking about their relationship?
Well, the source material in the when they come together and talk about it, it's all based on source material, and it's based on letters. For instance, Lewis's letters to lots of different people were kept by his brother Warnie, and he published the letters. That was a great way to get to know Lewis, get the way he acted, what he thought. Tolkien was the same. It's their letters that tell you so much about one another. If you read the letters of these two men, you find out a lot about them. And one of the things you find out is that they had a great sense of humor. So people will be surprised how much they laugh in the play.
The play is An Evening with C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. Unlike some of your work, not a one-man show. I'm guessing you portray C.S. Lewis because that's your
yes,
thing.
And there's a gentleman that portrays Tolkien.
Mm-hmm. And what's his name?
Gregory Williams Welsh.
Where did you find him?
Funnily enough, I found him in Nashville, of all places. He auditioned for. We've been getting so many requests for C.S. Lewis, and often requests come on the same day. So I've not been able to figure out how to be in two places at the same time. So we now have other actors. One of the reasons Johnathan is here is because he's going to be working with the Christmas with C.S. Lewis play, working with the Churchill play. So he came along and auditioned, and we liked him. And so he does actually do an evening with C.S. Lewis when I can't do it. But when it came to doing Tolkien and Lewis, and they rarely take place on the same time as we got an evening with C.S. Lewis, he started to do the Tolkien role. And I love working with him. It's a great chemistry. On stage, if the audience is going to feel it, you've got to feel it. If you don't feel it, the audience won't feel it. And so we do have I think we have a great chemistry. Well, if you ask us, do we enjoy it? We'll say, oh, yeah. I mean, Greg was here this weekend, a few days ago, because we've been rehearsing with him as well. And he was saying, I'm so looking forward to doing Lewis and Tolkien again. We haven't done it for so long. And it's because we enjoy it so much.
And you mentioned Johnathan Swenson, who's a former resident of the Cedar Rapids area. A lot
Yes.
of people remember him from a lot of performances at Theater Cedar Rapids and the Follies, pastor at St. Mark's Lutheran Church, among many other activities. He's right there with you now. So, Johnathan, for those who are watching the video, step in for a second and wave to the camera.
Hi, Dennis. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And again, those watching on the video can see the funeral procession for the Queen also happening. So now you know when this was taped. And Johnathan, you're in the UK to work with David on
learn from the master, David Payne. Yes, he's taken me on to learn. Well, now C.S. Lewis, the Christmas show, but primarily focusing after that on Churchill, his new show.
All right. So, well, I'm sure you're having a experience of a lifetime being in the UK right at this moment. And
incredible. It's incredible.
And hopefully we'll look forward to a chance to see you performing some of these roles in our area too. So thanks again. David Payne and Johnathan Swenson, thanks so much for being with me today. The play again is An Evening with C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. It's October 15th at the Paramount Theater in Cedar Rapids. You can get tickets at creventslive.com. David, thanks again for joining me today. Travel safe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person on the 15th.
Look forward to it, and thank you very much, and best wishes from England.
You can hear the Culture Crawl live on the radio many weekdays at 10:20, or download the podcast to watch or listen on your own schedule at kcck.org/culture, or however you get your podcasts. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.